Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha.
In various places I've been visiting, I've been reading from the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which Srila Prabhupada translated as the Nectar of Devotion, or he rendered, you can say, on the qualities of Krishna. So I'll continue with some more qualities. Won't finish it today. And even if we had a lifetime as long as Lord Brahma, I wouldn't finish it either. Rupa Goswami has summarized the qualities of Krishna, giving quotes from various sources, and I'm doing this in similar to the traditional part system, in which the speaker reads and just intersperses a few comments, more like a reading and then a few comments. So, quality number 14. Krishna is Vedanta, which translates more or less as an aesthete, one who is aesthetic, one who appreciates the arts. Of course, in modern Western culture, usually these people are very superficial and snobby kind of people, artsy kind of people. Krishna is not superficial or snobby. One whose mind is absorbed in the 64 arts such as dancing and singing and in various amusements is called Vedanta. So this term is quite similar to Rasik. It's a well-known term. Muhuraho Rasika Bhuri Bhavuka. Beginning of Bhagavatam. We are enjoying to be Rasikas, Bhavukas. Bhavuk means one who is on the emotional platform, spiritually emotional. So we are enjoying to be Rasiks, or those who relish rasa, transcendental rasa, and Bhavukas, those who are relishing the transcendental emotions. So closely connected with this is to be an aesthete. To the pastimes of Krishna, they are performed at the topmost level of artistry, but at the same time that's completely natural. It's not, as I said, in the modern Western world, artsy kind of people are considered it's kind of status symbol, because it's connected. Art is connected with the mundane emotions. There's a lot of difference between Krishna's aestheticism and that of mundane artists. Especially in the modern world, art is a representation, it's an external manifestation of deranged minds. And one of the most influential modern artists, Vikasa, his art is just a representation of completely mad person. Van Gogh shot himself. That was his ultimate artistic expression, expressing myself. He expressed his dreams. Express means to take from inside to outside. So Krishna, he's not like that. Srila Bhakti Saraswati Thakur said that the quality of a Vaishnava is that his inside and his outside is the same. So For Krishna, being artistic is not he's not an artist as such. It's not like a quality that's appended to him, but he's natural. Everything he does is very artistic. And the 64 arts, although he studies them under Sandipana Muni, the 64 arts are natural qualities of Krishna. And in their personified forms, they are natural servants of Krishna. Here's a verse, it's not stated the source of it, which describes how Krishna is an aesthete. Look, Krishna is composing songs and dancing. Tandavam Ghatiyati. Tandavam means especially vigorous kind of dance. There are different kinds of dances. Some are slow and graceful, but Tandava is a very heavy-duty kind of dance. So at this point, Krishna was there. That, of course, is famous Lord Shiva's Tandava Nritya, by which he destroys the whole universe. So Krishna is composing songs and dancing. Oh, that reminds me, I was just reading something today, and let's divert a bit into description of some of Krishna's dance. Krishna dances in different ways at different times. Let's see. Dancing. In Krishna's pastimes there are various activities, and sometimes the event of the day is a fighting event, sometimes it's a playing in the Yamuna event, and sometimes it's a dancing festival. So, here's a description from a disciple of Associate Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Manohar Das, about the singing and dancing of Radha and Krishna. There is special music, singing and dancing. Evening. So Lord Brahma, he thought that, well, one night's not going to be long enough, so he called for Nidra Devi, the goddess of night, and she extends unlimitedly the night. Need lots of time for Krishna's dancing. He can go on, non-stop dancer. So, Radha and Krishna begin. First of all, Radha asks Krishna to begin singing, and Krishna asks Radha to begin, and then they start singing together. So, as they sing together, all the planets in the universe become pervaded with the sound, and Ananta Shesh, his 1,000 heads, they all start spinning. And Narada Muni, who was at one point a terrible musician, and then later became an expert musician, he even became bewildered by hearing this amazing music of Radha and Krishna singing. So first of all they started with the sound, and then it was introduced rhythm by clapping hands. It's described that Krishna's form is composed of all the ragas, or the male scales, and the gopis, or musical scales, and the gopis are composed of all the raginis. So Radha and Krishna expand into many forms, and because they're practically unlimited ragas, so they expand into many forms and sang in many ragas, and all the animals, birds, trees and creepers and Vrindavan became thrilled with ecstasies. So Radha asked Krishna to sing, come on, give us something special. And Krishna sang a tune that turned all living entities into a sham-like color, like himself. Now then he asked Radha to sing, and she sang a melody that turned all the living beings into a golden color. Then he praised her, and he praised the singing, and then she asked him to play his flute, which has the property of causing all creatures to take on an opposite characteristic. In other words, the moving beings become stunned, and the non-moving beings, they become, just like the rocks become liquid. So they take on opposite nature. So, first of all, there's sound, and then rhythm, and then dancing. And that, the dancing, because all the Krishna and the gopis, they're all wearing ankle bells, so that produces more sound. So, everyone rests for a time, and Madhu Mangal, the local joker, he gets up, and for him, he doesn't have to, it's just naturally funny. Everything he does is amusing. So everyone requests him to dance, and he said he will dance like Krishna. And Krishna asked him, well, don't do anything that will embarrass me. Madhu Mangal is Tandava Nritya. He starts jumping around in a very heavy way, and then he does Lasya Nritya, feminine, that's more feminine style. And then he dances in the way that Radha dances, which overwhelms Krishna. So, there's a description of Krishna dancing like that. So it's just a summary description of a different day, Krishna dancing by popular request. Krishna is dressed as a girl, because it's quite complex, the whole thing. I won't get into why Krishna is dressed as a girl. But then he dances. First of all, with only one foot moving, then with both feet moving, then he dances with his toes only. Then all the forest animals come to watch. He dances with a threefold bending form. Then Krishna dances on his knees only. Then he does a hip dance, then a chest dance, a head dance, and an entire body dance. Then on Radha's request, he dances with his hands and fingers only. Then he does a cloth dance, moving the cloth around. Then a spin dance. Then dance balancing himself in the air with only his hands on the ground. Then he dances in a pattern like a 108-petal lotus flower. Still just alive in India, some people they do that. You dance on some sand, and you have some cloth covering the sand, and then when you finish the dance, there'll be some design, maybe like a lotus or a lion or something like that. But that's all being lost now, because it's Bollywood dancing. Disco dancing. So Krishna dances like that. Then he dances upon a metal dish. Just to... Yeah, still, these things are going on. But, all these things are endangered due to modern so-called culture. Horrible culture. Then juggling feats. And then Krishna does, on Radha's request, Sampurna Nritya, in which Krishna dances, balancing on his head. First of all, there's a big pot, then a dish, then a smaller water pot, then another smaller pot, and finally on top of all that, a gem-studded jewelry box. And while all that's on his head, Krishna's dancing in all the techniques that has just been described, and everything remains without dropping. So, Krishna's the best dancer. That's the conclusion. That's just a summary description. So, Krishna composes songs, he dances, he makes riddles, plays the flute. Right? Krishna plays the flute, you heard that one before. There he is, playing his flute. Look quickly before it gets closed away. He'll be back, don't worry. Krishna knows how to string garlands. Not only the gopis. Krishna knows too. He knows everything. How to draw pictures. How to make magical objects. How to win at dice. So, that's Krishna. He knows how to enjoy himself. And he has plenty of time to do so also. He doesn't have to go to any factory or any such thing. He has all eternity to enjoy himself. And he's always enjoying himself, and he never stops enjoying himself, and his enjoyment is always increasing. He is the supreme enjoyer. Another quality of Krishna, Chaturaha, clever. The clever person is defined by Rupa Goswami as one who brings about a solution to many problems simultaneously. He's a multitasker, as they would say in the modern age. Krishna gives bliss to the cows by composing cowherd songs, special songs that the cows like. He pleases the gopis by the movement of his brow. He brings joy to his friends by heroic actions. And all of this is going on while Arishtashura is trying to make Krishna feel afraid. So Krishna is kind of ignoring Arishtashura and doing all these things. And that's one way of showing contempt to an opponent, is just to ignore them. Of course, Krishna eventually dealt with Arishtashura. The next one is Daksha. These are similar terms. Chatura, very clever. Jai Krishna Bhaje Shai Bharo Chatur. That's commonly quoted. Who worships Krishna, he's most intelligent. So Daksha means expert. Particularly here, expert is defined as one who does quickly what is difficult to do. What for others seems to be very difficult to do, an expert can just come in and do it. If you don't know what you're doing, you can fiddle around for a long time and you can't work it out. But an expert, someone who knows, they can just walk in and immediately do what is required to do. From the 10th canto of Bhagavatam, Lord Hari then struck down all the missiles and weapons that the enemy soldiers threw at him, destroying each and every one with 3 sharp arrows. So there's an example of him as an expert fighter, that he was able to counteract all the many weapons being discharged at him. Another example, all of the gopis requested Krishna to dance with him. So Krishna expanded himself into many forms, but all the gopis thought that Krishna was only dancing with her. So that's very expert. How would you do? When many people they all want you to do with them only, and what can you do? You have to refuse. You can only fulfill the request of one. But Krishna said, okay, to all of them, and not one by one, but at the same time. And they all thought that Krishna is only with them. So, Kritanyaha, gratefulness. The grateful person is one who acknowledges others who have done service, who acknowledges and reciprocates. Ungratefulness is considered an extremely bad quality. In Mahabharata there's some statement that the jackals won't eat the dead body of an ingrate. It's considered the worst thing. If you do something for someone and they just don't appreciate or reciprocate with that. Normal in the modern age. It's just another symptom of Kali Yuga. An example from the Mahabharata. Draupadi cried out, Govinda! Krishna says, even though I was far away, that crying out has created an ever-increasing debt which does not leave my heart. So Krishna feels indebted. Anyone who calls out to him, Krishna feels, oh, this person cares for me, I should care for them. Elsewhere, not here in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu commentary, but elsewhere in his commentary on Bhagavatam, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur states that tears from Draupadi's face fell on the feet of Krishna. He wasn't there, but he appeared there just by her remembrance of him. And the tears fell on Krishna's feet. Another example. Jambavan had offended Krishna. He acted very aggressively toward Krishna. Krishna appeared in his home, and one should accept guests very with much hospitality. Atiti Devo Bhava, one should consider a guest, especially an unexpected guest, as to be like God. But when Krishna arrived in his home, Jambavan saw that the child was upset and that Krishna was holding the Samandaka jewel, and he, without inquiring, he immediately took an aggressive role toward Krishna. So his behavior was externally offensive, but Krishna, remembering that Jambavan, when Krishna had come as Lord Rama, Jambavan had performed so much service at that time, so Krishna, he didn't take the offense of his servitor very seriously, even though Jambavan had been fighting with him, trying to kill him. And of course, as soon as Jambavan realized that this is must be Lord Rama, because no one else can fight with me like this, and then he came to his senses, and Krishna very graciously accepted his daughter, Jambavati, and in that position gave great respect to Jambavan, because to accept the daughter means to accept the father-in-law. So Krishna, being of very high class kind of person, highest class person, highest of all, they never forget. A high class person never forgets what little service is rendered to them. And what to speak of Krishna, who is the topmost jewel among all well-behaved persons. Then the next quality, number 18, Sudhira Vrata. Hare Krishna. Krishna's word, his promise, his vow, is sudhira, very firm. A person who is true to his promise is called fixed in his vows. So here's an example. There's a verse quoted from Harivansham. It doesn't give the context. It simply states that all the devas, gandharvas, rakshasas, asuras, yakshas, and panagas are trying to make me promise. Make me break my promise, but they cannot do so. Very famous example in the Bhagavatam is that of Bhishma promising that tomorrow I will either kill Arjuna or I'll make Krishna break his promise. I'll fight so seriously that Duryodhana verbally goaded Bhishma that you're not fighting properly. You're just partial to these Pandavas. You're not doing your job properly. We made you the head of the army, but you're practically accused of being a traitor. So Bhishma said, tomorrow I'll either kill Arjuna, or the only way he can live, I'll fight so seriously, the only way Arjuna can live tomorrow is if Krishna defends him. So that actually happened. Bhishma was fighting so seriously against Arjuna, and Arjuna was so in such difficulty that Krishna became, even though Krishna had promised not to take up any weapon, he said, I'll be in this battle, but I won't fight. I won't touch any weapon. But he broke his promise to maintain another promise that he had, Kaunteya pratijanihi name bhakta panashati, a promise which he made through the mouth of Arjuna. He told Arjuna, you declare that my devotee is never destroyed. So there were two promises now. Bhishma put Krishna into a very awkward situation. He had to either break his promise not to defend his devotee, or he had to break his promise not to fight. So he broke his promise not to fight, not to pick up any weapon, although the weapon was the cartwheel. Ratangapani, his name is given in the Bhagavatam. He's picked up part of the chariot, the wheel. But he also protected Bhishma's promise in this way. So Krishna is very firm to his vow. Now you may say, well, there's an example of him breaking his vow. But no, the most important, if there's a vow not to fight and a vow to protect his devotee, then Krishna, he took up the one which is most important to him, which is to protect his devotee. In other words, protecting his devotee is more important than his own good name and reputation. So, another example. Yeah, he pleased Satyabhama. Satyabhama was not very happy that Krishna had given the Parijata flower to Rukmini. So Krishna said, okay, let's go. I'll give you a whole tree. Which he had to do that, he had to fight with Indra. So Krishna fulfilled his promise to Satyabhama. He also promised Yudhishthira that all his enemies would be removed. Then another quality which is very similar, again many of the qualities which are described are very similar. Satya Niyama means it's almost the same as the previous one. Sudhira Vrata, that he's fixed in his vows. So a vow that Krishna made, your devotee will never suffer. Krishna promises his devotee will not suffer. So Krishna demonstrated this by lifting Govardhan hill, and in this way protected all his devotees from the devastating rain sent by Indra. And in fact, not only were they not suffering, but they were all very happy, because they all got the opportunity to be with Krishna for 7 days and 7 nights. So that was the greatest happiness. And despite the cold and the wind and the rain outside, all the devotees felt very comfortable being under the Govardhan, being held up by Krishna. Now, this Satya Niyama, this is Jiva Goswami describes here. Now we know the term promise, but this Satya Niyama is a little different from a promise. Means something, it's like something that you say which is just relevant to some particular context. But Satya Niyam is something that's it's a vow which is relevant to all times, places and circumstances. So Krishna's vow to protect his devotees, that applies to all times, places and so on. That doesn't get adjusted according to situation. Other things may be adjusted. Krishna's promise not to fight or not to pick up a weapon in the battle of Kurukshetra, that was relevant only to that situation. But his eternal vow is to protect his devotees. So that's more than a promise. So Krishna, quality number 19, he is the best judge of time, place and circumstance. He knows how to act in various circumstances. So this is a very important point, and one that's often misused and misunderstood. But there are various rules in Shastra of what to do, how to behave. There are various norms of civilized human behavior, but how to apply them to various circumstances, one has to understand the situation and act accordingly. One is very expert in that. Just like, for instance, well, in a class like this, there may be a baby that starts to cry. So, how to react? You may react to ask the mother to take the baby out, or just tolerate it, or to some extent tolerate it, and if it goes on, something like that. It's just a normal example. How it's not. There's no. Well, one norm is of behavior is that in a formal assembly there shouldn't be any disturbance. But on the other hand, there has to be some leeway given for babies. Babies, you can't expect them to behave like adults. On the other hand, they are disturbing. So, how to adjust it? How to react to that? Different people may react in different ways. Krishna is expert in acting according to time, place and circumstances. Jiva Swami mentions that of the time, actually the word used are Desh Kal Patra, which means the place, the time, and the various. The Patra means actually means the person. The person who's the recipient of the behavior. So Jiva Goswami here in the commentary says that the most important consideration is of the persons. Because if the person is unqualified, then the place and time, it doesn't make much difference anyway. So how to behave with people, we have to consider the qualification of the people also. This is a very important point, because in modern society the idea is that everyone is just equal in all respects, which is nonsense. It's not at all true, and it's not applied in practical life. But there's some kind of idea that everyone's just intrinsically the same. Everyone's intrinsically qualified in the same way. But we see that in Vedic society, for instance, the education is not given to everyone. In modern society, that's considered, oh, what a terrible thing. They don't educate everyone. Well, education is given to everyone, but according to their ability. Someone who's going to be making pots all their life, you don't try to teach them calculus or physics. And they could learn physics to learn all the how the potter's wheel is moving, but they don't need to. So he's milking a cow, doesn't need to know about chlorophyll and all this kind of thing, how it all becomes adjusted in the stomach of the cow. You just milk the cow, that's all. So there is education, but according to time, place, and the qualification of the person. And just like there may be a bus driver in London, and why is it really required that before driving a bus he has to go to school for 12 years to learn all kinds of things, or not learn them at all? It's not necessary. Of course, these are controversial topics in this modern mad world, but we're hearing about Krishna here. Krishna is the best judge of time, places, persons, how to interact with various people in various situations. Here's an example of Krishna being the expert judge of time, place and circumstance. Krishna seeing, well, now it's autumn, which in autumn in India it's hot in the day but pleasantly cool at night. And Krishna sees, so it's night time, it's pleasantly cool, there's nice moonlight, and here we are in Vrindavan, which is the best place in all the three worlds, and there are beautiful gopis here, so it's a good time for a rasa dance. Krishna made a good decision then. Krishna is expert in judging the time, place and circumstance. Hare Krishna. I'll finish there. And someplace, sometime, I'll continue reading through these qualities of Krishna. It's very nice to hear. It's nice to think about Krishna. A wonderful person who is Krishna. The wonderful qualities of Krishna. So we can become attracted to Krishna. Outside this building, there's just in this small area called the West End of London, there are so many different attractions which are meant to attract people. And actually people are attracted. They come from all over the world and no one's happy. Everyone's miserable. But Krishna, he doesn't come to such a nasty place. He only comes to this part of the West End. And this is actually Vrindavan. And there's no gross sense gratification, but there is Krishna is the best sense gratifier of all. All these people have no idea how to gratify their senses. Krishna, he's always gratifying his senses, but there's no grossness, there's no disappointment. It's all ananda chinmaya rasa. It's all fully transcendental bliss. So all the people who come from all over the world to enjoy themselves, better they come down and bow down before Krishna and admit that he is the supreme enjoyer. But they won't, so they have to stop. Hare Krishna. That's how you say it. And no any questions. Is there anyone have any questions? You have a question? Alright.
You mentioned somewhere that gopis wanted that Krishna dance with them only, like no one else, just them. Each gopi wanted.
Yeah, I was mentioning it, yeah. But the gopis wanted Krishna to dance with them. But elsewhere we hear that the gopis, that they always want to push Krishna towards Radha.
That's how they are different.
Well, that's what happens, right? They dance for some time and then Krishna just leaves them on and goes off with Radha. And Krishna also wants, Radha also wants that Krishna will enjoy all the gopis, so it's a kind of competition. There are different gopis also, as it's described, that some are more inclined toward Krishna, some are inclined toward Radha, they're only pushing her forward, and others are somewhere in between. That's it is described. Yes, please.
Radharani was married to somebody else, and Krishna was going with Radha. Was it not
superficial? Superficially, Radharani is married to someone else. In fact, it's all superficial. You're married, I suppose.
Yes.
Yes, you're immoral. Because you think that your wife is for you to enjoy. But actually all women and all men also are only meant for Krishna's enjoyment. So anyone who thinks that any person is meant for anyone's enjoyment except Krishna, they are immoral.
My question was
Krishna is the enjoyer. Anyone who tries to be an enjoyer separately from Krishna is immoral. So actually everyone is the property of Krishna.
I understand that.
Superficially, do you know that word, superficially? It only appeared to be like that. Radharani was married to someone else. She's only married to Krishna.
But in the material world, people
that's the problem with the material world. The material world is all problems. That's why everyone's suffering, because they don't recognize that they're meant to be acting only for the pleasure of Krishna. They've developed morality separate from Krishna. That results in birth, death, old age and disease. However moral you may be. You're going to say something?
Radha was not superficially married, what would the excitement be of the illicit relationship?
Yeah, that's another element. Radharani's superficial marriage, this is all on the very highly elevated level of understanding Krishna's Leela, that adds spice to Krishna's relationship with her. But that's a very high platform of understanding. Yeah.
You said that Krishna protects his devotees, always protects them, but Yudhishthira said that if the devotees were to see all the troubles that the Pandavas went through, that would wither their faith in Krishna.
Yudhishthira said that if he would see all the troubles that the Pandavas went through, that would wither their faith in Krishna. Well, they have to see it through the eyes of the acharyas to explain all these things. What is Krishna's purpose? Even though devotees may go through many difficulties, ultimately Krishna protects them. There are various reasons for that. Krishna apparently puts his devotees through suffering to show that he ultimately delivers them, and to show how the devotees, they remain faithful to Krishna in all circumstances. I'm going to finish that. There's almost time for Arti. I'd just like to announce that I have some books here which I've written, and if anyone would like to take them, you want to show them quickly? CDs and DVDs of lectures.
What about the Bhakti book?
It should be printed. I was supposed to bring it with me, but it got delayed, and it's probably off the press in Shiva Kasi, which is a few thousand miles away from here.
Giving a plaque.
Yeah. I wanted to have it with me, but yeah, there are some books here, Rama.